It's Cecile
and Jenny.
We are here with Things in My Head podcast, and we have lots of fun things. Hopefully, I think most people will relate to somewhat of our topic today. But thank you guys for watching. If you don't know, we both also work at Brooks Boutique and originally started this podcast for our friends over there. Got to be too long in our Facebook lives. But so brooksboutique.com. Brooks Boutique Pearland on Facebook. Love Brooks Boutique on Instagram and TikTok. Of course, here, Things in My Head podcast. We're like on week 17 or something. So we drop episodes every Wednesday. So follow us on Instagram, Things in My Head podcast. Follow us on YouTube here. Follow us on Spotify. And our email is thingsinmyheadpodcast@gmail.com. So we've been getting great feedback. Sometimes we don't even realize, like someone will tell us randomly. So thank you guys, even if you don't like reach out for later and you've been following. I hope you've enjoyed the topics. It really is just the things that we have in our head. So anyway, I'm going to get right to it, I think, because what the topic we kind of wanted to talk about today, and I was gonna tell Jen the story for the first time, but I think maybe it's not me, maybe it's just me. But do we have? I don't know. Okay, so the title I was going to say, and I don't know what it's going to end up being when we load this, but I was going to say amateur therapist. Oh, yeah. Because, and I say amateur because I am not a therapist, but I like to help. I mean, I was going to make a joke and be like, I like to tell people what they should do, but not in a bad way. But I feel like I end up in just like different scenarios. Yeah. Like I don't.
You're a guiding figure. I feel like.
Thank you.
You give that energy. You're confident, so it's like good to hear from you. Sometimes thanks. People need that.
Okay, I'm glad you say that because a lot of times it's not necessarily solicited. Well, I say that. I always joke that you enter a mentorship program when you join us, at the boutique. And I only say that because I'm older and we get to know each other. We're such a tight-knit group that we get to know a lot of our personal lives, and the girls chat about it, and then I come in kind of as an older figure and let's had a little bit more experience. But I was going to tell you the story about actually a friend who's actually older than me. Do you ever have, or maybe have you had experience where you know someone and no matter, and it could be years, but every time you encounter them, you like it's always not good, like their life is kind of always falling apart, or they're not happy, and they're good people, but just like the world has gotten them, right? But there's always something, so
I feel like I don't think I've ever had like a friend that's necessarily been like that's like a personal friend, but I feel like I've worked with people like that.
Ooh, with us. I was like, you've worked with me for 9 years. Who is it? Sorry, that sentence surprised me. You tell me later. Obviously, I don't think they work here anymore.
You asked me a question and I answered.
What does their name start with? I'm sorry.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to say that I feel like I've never had a personal friend like that, but I feel like I've worked with people like that.
Okay, and that's fair. So the conversation I was going to tell you is, or chat with you about is, for me, I'm very good of like giving advice or sharing what my thoughts are, but leaving it there and not taking it. I can only do some. I've learned over the years, talking to many girls, that I can share my thoughts, and if they don't do it, then they're not ready. I mean, that's them. I'm not going to hold it against them, but I can invest in it, right? Yeah. So anyway, a lot of times it's younger girls, but I do know someone who is around my age, and I've known her for years. And part of me is like, I guess for a while I'm more attuned to it, is I'm like, wow, I sometimes feel like she probably feels, and she's voiced, is like, why does this always happen to me? Like in circumstances. So I only say this because I recently spent we spent a lot of one-on-one time together, just because I used her services, and we spent a lot of time together, and anyway, so, and it was through COVID years as well, where it was a lot rough, and now we're small business owners, so it's rough again, but I don't know, like I try to, this is what I always say, there's only two things you can control, which is your actions and your mindset, and so a lot of times it's how you react to a scenario, because there's a lot of things in life that go wrong, right?
That is true.
Like there's a lot of things that even if it looks like things are great, you know,
it's a house of cards. Yeah, it could all fall.
It could all fall, or you don't realize it doesn't mean that things aren't going bad. Like, for instance, this is just like an idea I've thought of. It's like, for 5 years before my parents both passed, so let's say it's from 2018 to 2023. If you knew me, I don't know if you thought, oh, that was her dark era,
Yeah.
I mean, I took care of them all the time and it was sad, but I still showed up and I still tried to see the best in things. So my point is, it doesn't mean things aren't going on for people.
Yeah.
That's life on earth. So
Yeah.
anyway, so this friend of mine, or acquaintance, or whatever you want to call it, friend, I always felt like, oh my gosh, and I have a couple of friends, actually, to tell you the truth, that they're like, everything is kind of like, every time I see them, the moment they walk into the room,
Something's wrong.
something's wrong. And at first I have, to be honest, had more empathy. But at some point I was like, I wonder how much is it like their mindsets and what did they do about it, right? Because everyone has problems. So I'm not going to lie. So unsolicited, after years, I finally was like, okay, let's talk it through. I'm not invalidating what you're saying, but at the same time, a lot of things were not happening to them. Like, it was someone in their family that was, they were sick or something happened and they needed this help. So it wasn't necessarily their thing, but it affected them. And it was core people in their life.
Yeah.
So I kind of was like, at what point is it, two things, and I'm going to get a little preachy, is, do you have a bigger purpose in life to get outside of yourself? Like, if it's God, did you fall away from God, fall away from church? We had a little bit of that conversation. I don't try to push too hard, but I do believe that matters. And second is, do we do things so that way that only we can control? Like, for instance, if you're mad at a friend or a loved one because they're not doing what you want, but also at the same time, you're looking at it from where's my hurt is. Can you look at it from yourself first? Like, can you empathize with them, and can you fulfill yourself first before you're looking for it for someone else? I always talk to you guys about this, about being your own individual, and you can't necessarily expect, to be fulfilled from someone else.
True.
But when you get in that mindset, so then we also had the discussion about, okay, if you can't change somebody else, you start from within, you start small, whatever. But then is there other things you can do to realize your value if you're not getting it from who you think you should out in the community, like putting yourself out there to help other people,
True.
So anyway, I know I'm going vague, but it was just an interesting conversation I recently had that made me realize, like, for me personally, at what point do I also think about who I surround myself with,
That is very important about who you surround
right.
yourself
And
with.
so part of it was, and honestly, I think in my mind, I said, I'm going to give this unsolicited conversation because maybe that's why I'm supposed to be here with her right now, and to spark a little bit of something, but then walk away because I can't keep that necessarily close for someone who's not ready. And this has been years, right, to do something about it. And there has been a couple friendships where I have had to realize two things. One is their worlds are always a rainstorm, and two, in our conversations, they never ask about me necessarily. It's always theirs, for me to give insight or advice. And at some point, it's like not healthy for me.
Yeah. And I think that's important to realize. And sometimes I feel like in the past, maybe I'm not like that anymore, but I feel like in the past, I could be kind of that person. I could be the kind of person that's a rainstorm all the time, that's looking down instead of looking up all the time. And I can understand that that's not exactly good for other people to be around. And then once I kind of realized that about myself, then I was able to kind of change. So that's good when people sometimes take a step away from you. It kind of lets you reflect and actually grow and become a better person. So it's, never take it like hard, like, oh, that person hates me. I can't believe they could leave me at the worst time of my life.
I'm not gonna lie, I walked away from that and I was telling Andy, I said, oh, she hates me and she's never gonna want to have lunch with me again.
I don't think that, and some people might take it that way, and that's just a risk you take.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're not giving the person a chance to grow.
Yeah.
And expand their horizon, because sometimes it is honestly the push that they need to kind of look outside of themselves and kind of stop that behavior. I think I was more like that when I was 18, 19, 20, like that kind of like younger age. Then I kind of realized that think I realized kind of what you were saying. It is really two things. It's your mindset and like what you're going to do about it. So, and does bringing it to anybody else's attention help what you're going through? No.
Yeah.
And you need a purpose in life. You need something that you're going towards, or you're just going to be so lost.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like. Part of me feels like empathetic, of course, and I'm like, wow, that does all suck, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how does all that happen to the person
I think
that are real?
Yeah, you brought an interesting thing up about also religion,
Yeah.
because the time period that I feel like I relate to your story is the time period that I was far away from my religion.
Oh, interesting.
So-
Talk to more, because I'll tell you what I think about this, because I don't know you. It's such a
It's
top
a very touchy subject.
touchy. Thank you. Touchy subject. I didn't even know how to approach it because I was never. We don't talk that, but
Yeah.
but I have also learned to be honest with you, to be unapologetically believing that I am a Christian, that I'm Catholic, and not throw it in your face.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't have to hide it either.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should have to hide their religion. I think that there are ways to go about it respectfully.
Right.
Especially when there's somebody, like in my case, I kind of fell away from my religion. So when people kind of shoved it in my face or try to make me feel ashamed of it, it doesn't bring me closer. It brings me further away.
Yeah.
So I think sharing a conviction or a testimony like you are, I think that's totally fine.
Okay,
I
good.
think it becomes a problem when you're trying to like persuade a person.
Okay, good. I
And
did
you're
not
trying
want to do that.
Push them and force, like, how could you not believe that?
Okay.
Like, you're gonna go to hell.
Oh yeah, I don't
You
do
know,
that.
like
I don't do that.
I feel like there's a wrongness in that.
Yeah, no judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then there's a correct way to do it. Like if it comes up naturally in conversation and that's your true heart,
Mm-hmm.
then that's no problem to speak it. And that will hopefully, it could help somebody guide them towards that way, or it will just do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's interesting you do say that, because I do feel in my own life where I felt like I've not always been this way. This is the conversation I had with her. I said, there's been times when if I'm Catholic, I go and I'm just like, sit there and don't really pay attention, and then there's like more recent where we are really I hate to say into it, but we do really understand the reverence of it and what, anyway, we're just
and
closer.
There's a lifetime to kind of, that's like a very heavy topic.
Right. So anyway, wait, I lost my train of thought. So anyway, my point is I just approached it in that sense of, I saw this in my life. Here we go. Here's my ADD. In my life, there's been times where I fell also further from my faith, and probably where I did not probably, and I did make mistakes. And so, but looking back now, I saw this just this morning. I saw this reel or this video or post or something just randomly on my feed, and it said, if it breaks God's heart, there's no way it can fulfill yours. And I was like thinking back to what I know, the mistakes I've made, and I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. It's so true.
That one hits.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh. And a good one I will remember forever, though.
Yeah.
Because when there is a lot of either choices you make, temptations, or something you think is like, oh, but that was so good. Like, because you are thinking about just yourself, and
I think, religion is such an interesting thing, but it does kind of at least give you a further purpose, at least.
Yeah.
And I am nowhere near where I was when I think my grandma had a lot to do with that. She was great. We just read the Bible at home together, and it was just very much that kind of thing. So I've never really been a part of a huge church or anything like that. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel a little guilty because I'm not involved like I feel like I should be. But
well, don't self-impose it either.
Yeah.
True, I just sprinkled it. To be honest, I sprinkled it because I felt like, maybe that's my purpose here, is just to get that going. But, but then back off, because you're not going to change them. They have to do it on their own,
everybody
right?
has to do it on their own. And I feel like when it's pressured, then it becomes performative.
Exactly.
And it's not truly what's in your heart.
Right.
And I think that's a journey that I'm going to go on, and it's going to be very much years for me to get through. what that is.
So anyway, that was that was my recent. So I don't like to push, but I just left it one. And I told her, I said, I hope we talked about a bunch of other things too, which was like a greater purpose outside of yourself, regardless of what it is. And that's why I talked about, volunteer work and keeping busy, and a lot of women who do things in the community and it fulfills them, and you realize that there's a purpose that's bigger than me for my value, like to help in other. Anyway, so this morning, so I was like, okay, I'm going to leave it be. She didn't text me after our lunch, which is fine. We all go back to work. Yeah. And so this morning I did come across my feed like this, because we talked about starting very small. I'm not talking about like just religion. I was like, oh, if you have an issue communicating with your spouse, let's say, I said, because you're all thinking about the things they don't do for you, maybe you just start with a question of, what keeps you up at night. Get to know their issues, or what makes you happy, what's your dream, and then you tackle something more. So then I said, I'm not even saying go to church or whatever. I'm saying I said, can you just say a prayer at night? I said a prayer at night saying, God, please, I need to sleep. Y'all know I have an issue sleeping. So I was like, God, please, I really need to sleep tonight. Can I please shut my brain off and go to sleep? And I said, and I slept that night, Hey. And so I'm like, so I said, start small. So this morning I found a morning prayer someone had posted, very generic of, thank you for waking me up, that stuff. So I sent it to her. And I said, I hope you have a great day. Because I also know she's going to be like, oh, Lord.
Oh, here we go. We started the
exactly. So I told myself I'm going to send that. And then I'm not going to send anything else, because it's just a seed for her. It
doesn't feel right.
Right.
You felt like that post was the right thing.
And then that's it. Literally, I'm probably not going to reach out again until she reaches out, because I can't carry it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's all she needed for the purpose she needed from me. But I don't know, man. Part of me also was like, when you're around, I don't want to discredit like what she's going through. I know she's totally different background, but at the same time, I also am like, I got to move on with mine, and make you appreciate, I think, how I see things, like perspective, because
it's
who wants
good
to
get
that?
It's good to get out of your perspective, because it gives that person a chance to see it another way and also grow from it. I don't think I would ever have grown if like people didn't step away. So I'm, while it was hard, I'm grateful for that experience, and I would never hold ill will. I wish those people all the best, and it was just time to stop. And I don't think that I was the one that could have stopped it, because I'm very loyal, very attached. So I think it was good that it stopped.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of like, you know what? It's been years and I'm happy.
I feel like I know a couple of them.
I was going to say.
I think I actually know a couple of these stories.
But I'm just glad that it's done. And, I'm on a new path.
Yeah.
And I feel like, honestly, I'm starting a good chapter.
Good.
And I'm about to be 30, and I feel actually really,
Wait, you're turning 30 next month, right?
Yeah. So I feel
what are
like,
we doing?
Oh my God.
What are we doing?
I thought I was going to feel like existential dread. And I don't. I'm surprisingly very calm. I'm excited. I'm
30s
happy.
are great.
I feel really good about it.
30s are awesome.
I thought I was going to feel horrible about it. I thought I was like, oh my God, I'm going to feel old. I'm going to feel all these things. I'm going to feel under.
This is me rolling my eyes.
I'm going to feel all the worst things, like I don't have a relationship, no children, no home. I'm just like, okay. But honestly, I feel really good about my life decisions. Not everything was like the rightest decision, but I'm happy where I ended up.
No, I love that.
And I think that the next 5 years, I see where I'm going.
I
and
love that.
That's kind of the first time in my whole life where I actually see myself going somewhere.
I'm telling you, the 20s are rough, because there's so many. You're not mature enough to understand.
Yeah, like half of it, your brain's not even functional.
Or you're so worried about what other people think.
Yes.
If it's your family, if it's society, if it's whatever, and you're just you're still comparing yourself a lot. I feel like in your 20s, worse now because of social media, but in your 30s, I think you start being like, I don't care. I mean, I'm gonna do my thing.
I'm just going to live and do what makes me happy.
Exactly.
And I feel good about it, and I kind of like that you brought that story up, because I think that it's good that I can relate to the person that you're talking about.
Okay.
Kind of bring their perspective, and then you're the outside perspective. So.
And I will tell you, I did end it by saying, I know this was not the conversation in lunch, because we were just having lunch that I thought we were going to have or you wanted to have, but also it only comes out of love, because I hate seeing you always so, I don't know what the word is, sad, disgruntled every time I see you. Life is more than that.
It really is. And when you're in a cycle like that, it is very hard to pull yourself out.
Yeah.
So like, I totally empathize with her. I get it. Like, it is hard to pull yourself out, especially, here's why I feel like I used to be like that.
Okay.
It's because I was very closed off to everyone around me except for a select few people. Those were the people that I was always a rainstorm, because I had to hold everything in all the time. So of course, when you see that one person, you just release. Because you can't do that with anybody else in your life. And you're just like, oh my gosh, finally I can speak to somebody that's like listening to me, that's hearing me.
And you feel safe
that
with.
I feel safe with.
Okay, that's fair. And I am thinking, when you say that, I'm like, this person works with people, so it's not like with clients, so it's not like you can blah all day.
You can't do that all day.
She's probably
you're holding it in all day.
Yeah.
And nobody's giving you validation.
Yeah.
Except for this, maybe, yourself.
Apparently it's
who
me.
It wasn't. It could be. I mean, this is just from my perspective, not hers. So I don't know.
Right.
So this is just like from what I realized from myself, was that's why I did that a lot. And
are those the people that you ended up having that left because they're like, I can't just deal with this?
Yes.
Interesting.
So I think that. Okay. So I was like. Yeah, so they ended up walking away because I was
just dumping on
exhibiting
them.
a behavior that was very not good. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to myself. And yeah, to put pressure or like not pressure, but it's. I guess you're just like dumping all of your drama onto somebody all the time, and you're just negative.
So my question
you're bringing people down versus bringing them up.
Did you listen to, if they would give you feedback? A, did they give you feedback? And two, would you just not listen? And that's also why they got tired of it?
I think so, yeah. I'll admit that. I'll
Okay.
put my ego aside. They definitely gave me advice, ways to handle things, and I was just like, no.
Yeah.
And I just
and then
kept
come
going
back with the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So,
I see that.
And also at the time, I will give myself a little grace. I was very young, and there's probably not a lot that I could have done in those situations.
Also, we've talked about therapy in the past. You weren't getting it.
I was going to say, there's just not a lot that you can do. And honestly, I feel like a lot of my rainstormy behavior was tied. My grandmother was very sick.
Yes, I remember that time.
She had dementia for a long time. She lived with dementia for years.
And that's
a very
tough disease.
It's very, very, very emotionally taxing on the family.
Yes.
Caretakers, like, honestly, if you're listening to this and you're a caretaker, all the respect, because it is so hard.
Oh, we dealt with that with my dad. Yeah.
It's just so difficult, especially because you're watching the person you love suffer all the time, and there's really nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
And it was mostly me and my mom taking care of my grandma. And I was very young, and I don't think I understood how to. Of course, I took very good care of her, like breakfast, lunches, but it was hard emotionally on both of us.
Yeah. And you didn't have a proper outlet, you think, because you're giving so much, and you're like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
You're 19, so obviously you're drinking, and that's just.
Did you say 19? I think the age is 21, but
I didn't start drinking until I was in college. So I was
getting college at 18.
I know.
We'll edit that. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so I think that exacerbates you and then makes you kind of different. So I think that there was
probably it was your friends.
It's a mixture of all those things, and I think my friends were very young at the time too. So how are they supposed to help me understand this when they
didn't know?
They've never done this, and they're also very young. So it's unfair for me to be like, why can't you help me? Why can't you do that? So I think that was unfair for me to be doing that. I just didn't know any other way, and I kind of learned my lesson.
So I guess the moral of our story is on both sides. Interesting. We did not plan this. That you were the one that probably did a lot of dumping, and I am the part of a relationship that takes
Did a
it
lot of
all.
receiving.
Yeah, receiving until I was just like, I can give you only so much, and this is my thought. I'll sprinkle what I think I'm supposed to do, but then I have to protect myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, knowing that you have to protect yourself is a good thing because
Yeah.
it will damage, like, I hope that those people are okay from
Yeah.
everything.
They are.
Yeah. But
I think I'm Facebook friends with them. I'm just kidding.
So I just, I don't know, but I think that
So what we want to share with our listeners is, regardless of which side you are, maybe gives you, there was no point except maybe perspective, right?
perspective.
Like perspective, and that I hope my friend takes my advice, whatever you were supposed to hear from that, and move from it, and I won't bother you again.
But I think that, that's very good. And I like this topic. Okay. This is very good.
Well, just a few things that we want to share of our real life stories that maybe touches you in some way. And if there's any feedback in particular, like you're like, oh, that probably whatever, give it to us. Because sometimes we don't know. You've been in a scenario like that and it's a different perspective. Like Jen and I talk, and I'm like, interesting. Share it with us. We do want to know, because I do have these conversations a lot with not random people, but people in my life just somehow gravitate to that sort of relationship. So would love to know your feedback and some takeaways that might help me as I try to help other people.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we hope to have you back. And don't hesitate to reach out to us in Instagram, Things in My Head Podcast, gmail.com. And if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And we would love to hear what you want to hear us talk about.
Yeah, that would be awesome. All right. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys very soon.
Bye.
Bye.